At the same time, it's also obvious that we have to take care of our own houses, so to speak, before we take care of the neighborhood. And let's be honest, among friends here, in both of our nations, there is a need today to fortify our houses against internal challenges as well. In the West, if we make an honest assessment, we must acknowledge that our long-term prosperity and security are currently being undermined by, let's call it a crisis of self-doubt. It's been developing now for years. Elite institutions today tell the young and impressionable that our story is one of oppression and hypocrisy and failure. Our brightest minds are too often taught to view our history only through the lens of its sins. And we see the work of international organizations and transnational bodies hinder the very spirit of creativity and industriousness and daring that our nations were built upon. We have faced this in America just as you have here, a truly menacing skepticism towards history and our national institutions. And it's even come to the point where even great heroes like Sir Winston Churchill are questioned for their legacy. What has taken hold is a mindset that defines itself not by what it loves and seeks to preserve, but instead by what it condemns and seeks to tear down. And this growing disaffection we see, particularly among our younger citizens, is a serious threat to the health of both our nations. If the next generation is never exposed to the deeper wisdom of the Western world, or the enduring tradition of the British Parliament, or the genius of America's model of Republican self-government, then why would they feel any obligation to defend or preserve them? Fortunately, history teaches us an important lesson. Just over half a century after American independence, our country faced a moment of reckoning. It was 1838, and for the first time in our short history, America's founding fathers, the men who had led us through the turbulent years of our young nation, were no longer there to guide us. A growing disregard for the rule of law had taken hold at that time, and the cries of mob rule threatened every part of our country. A young legislator at that time, concerned by what he saw as America's deteriorating regard for its past, charged his countrymen with an important choice. Would they uphold their duty and preserve the blessings for which their fathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor? Or would they continue on the path of decline and self-destruction? The answer was simple, he said. This experiment in liberty could not survive unless the principles enshrined in the Declaration and institutionalized in our Constitution became their shared civic faith. That rising statement, he was just 28 years old at the time, would one day become president, and he would be called to confront the greatest stress test of the American experiment yet. His likeness stands just a few feet away from here, where we're gathered today, watching over Parliament Square. Abraham Lincoln, of course, wisely understood that the philosophy of the schoolroom in one generation is the philosophy of government in the next. He knew that our national renewal would not come from repudiating our past, but rather from renewing and recommitting to our best principles, to appealing to the better angels of our nature. The struggle of Lincoln's time shows us that though America may be 250 years old, the question of how best to steward this grand experiment has always been with us. And age-old questions require age-old wisdom. In the West today, we see faith in our foundations and our shared inheritance weakening. And what we have to do is channel the wisdom of our predecessors to chart our own renewal. So what does renewal require? Just a few things. Well, first, it requires remembrance. This is a biblical admonition, in fact. We're to remember our blessings and from where we came. And the great British philosopher G.K. Chesterton warned, every high civilization decays by forgetting obvious things. Things like the dignity of the individual, the stabilizing role of the family, the human yearning for meaning and purpose, and the indispensable relationship between freedom and virtue. In short, we have to remember our foundations, and we have to describe what they are, because the generation behind us seems not to understand this.